All right, well, good early morning. We are continuing our coverage of Hurricane Laura, so let's get right to it here.
Yes, Ted Oberg is live in Lake Charles. And Ted, I know that you have been in the center of activity. You have moved from outside to a safe indoor location. We're glad to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gina, I'm not certain if you can hear me over that whistle, but we talk a lot about what it sounds like to be in the middle of an intense hurricane. This is one of those sounds. That's not a fire alarm or anything like that. It's these doors. It's the wind whistling through those doors. I'm not certain you can hear me over that. It's incredibly loud, concert level loud, just high-pitched whistle as the wind whips through the pool area and in through those doors there. They've brought everyone inside. The doors here are boarded up, but there is a door that you can see. Outside where we were earlier, some of the glass from a railing up above had fallen down. They brought everyone inside, Gina and Eric, and the glass windows here at the back of this restaurant have been vibrating. If you've never seen that, it's an incredible sight. But also a very dangerous one, which is why no one's getting close. Those entire window panes, probably 8 feet tall and 5 feet wide, are just vibrating with the wind. They haven't broken yet, but it is certainly a sign that that's a distinct possibility. We've been very close to the actual eye of Hurricane Laura now, probably for a half an hour, and every time that whistle of that wind starts to die down, we think, okay, it's about to turn off, because that's what will happen as the eye makes its way here to where we are in Lake Charles. The wind will just sort of die down. You can see, though, that has not happened. Through that window there, it's a tinted window, but you can see that there's a tree just absolutely whipping back and forth. A light pole behind it has fallen apart in the wind, and as I mentioned, the glass from a railing up above has rained down on the area just outside these doors. This is the worst of it. Then we'll have about an hour of calm here, or maybe a little bit less, and then all of a sudden, right back after it for hours more here in Lake Charles. Thankfully, we are safely inside, Gina and Eric, because this is a very tough time for Lake Charles, for anyone who is outside or in a house that's maybe not as sturdy as you hope it would be.
You know, Ted, we honestly were sitting here on the set listening to you when you began your report, and we were thinking, wow, this is something we haven't experienced before. It's eerie sounding, like a soundtrack of a spooky film.
And it is, right? I mean, it's a sound you can't imagine, but I'm telling you, people's homes make that sound. And it's just the force of that wind. In this instance, well in excess of 100 miles an hour, but it can do it at far less speed. It just forces its way through cracks or small spaces, and it turns your home, or in this case, a giant building, into a whistle, and it's super loud.
All right, yeah, very, very much a bizarre and eerie sound right there. Ted Oberg live there in Lake Charles. And according, we were hearing from Alita just right now that he's basically kind of witnessing that eye wall right there that's coming. So he's getting some of the most intense winds. And then in a minute here, he could have just quietness, sky, stars, everything.
Yeah, Alita, I guess you're ready to give us a forecast, and I don't know, can you begin with some comments on what Ted's experiencing?
He's experiencing some of the worst of the winds that Laura has to offer. I mean, you can see clearly that within the next few minutes or so, that whistling sound, that eerie sound that we just heard from Ted is going to go away all of a sudden, and he's going to be like, wait, what just happened? That is the northern fringe of that eye wall, and you can see the eye right now starting to close out of the Cameron area, now pushing toward the Lake Charles area. We've got more rain, more wind on the bottom side of this storm, but not compared to what he is enduring right now. The official wind speeds coming in from the Lake Charles airport there are gusts up to 135 miles per hour, making landfall right before midnight along the coastline there of Cameron Parish, right along the city of Cameron, of maximum sustained winds of 150 miles per hour. The latest update from the National Hurricane Center, it is still moving to the north at 15 miles per hour and will continue that northward jog for the next several hours. And we're looking at maximum sustained winds now down a bit, but this is still a very dangerous storm. 140-mile-per-hour winds. Notice the feeder bands. These are strong winds coming ashore along I-10 eastward into Lafayette, where a lot of those areas are under tornado warnings. We also still have extreme wind warnings because the wind speeds are in excess of 115 miles per hour. And these are going to be ongoing at least for another hour or so. We have seen those extreme wind warnings continuing to be extended because this storm system just has so much punch to it. And you can see these outer rain bands, and these rain bands are extending well into East Texas. But again, I want to show you the eye. Oh yeah, Lake Charles. If we go back to Ted, he's going to tell you the difference. That howling sound that he was in about 5 minutes ago is going to be calmed down, and he'll experience that calmness at least for, you know, the next 15 to 30 minutes until that eye continues to drift up toward the north, and then he'll get the bottom half of this, more heavy rain and the potential for some wind. Now, over the last several hours, our radar has definitely picked up more of that northerly jog. The official cone from the National Hurricane Center has a little bit of a jog toward the north and west, so wait and see if this starts to wobble in that direction. But you can see the outer rain bands on the west side impacting our friends here out toward Beaumont, Port Arthur. About an hour ago, we checked in with our friend Jessica Willey, and it was terrible. They were dealing with wind gusts between 50 and 60 miles per hour, and already having a hard time, you know, standing up, trying to get to her position. But this is a situation where debris, power outages, not as widespread as the power outages that our friends in Louisiana are going to be encountering or are encountering from those winds of over 115 miles per hour. But these are the type of conditions where trees are going to be uprooted due to the heavy rains that continue to fall here over the next couple of hours. These areas could be dealing with anywhere between 5 to 10 inches over a foot of rain. So flash flooding, a possibility in portions of East Texas right along the border of East Texas and Louisiana. I talked about that extreme wind warning, and if you've been watching our coverage, meteorologist David Tillman, as well as Travis Herzog and Kevin Roth, talking about these extreme wind warnings, and we don't get it very often because they're only issued when winds are in excess of 115 miles per hour. And, you know, interesting note, watching my colleague David Tillman, you know, talk about the only time back in the day, he likes to use that back in the day. I said, David, don't use those terms because then, you know, you age yourself and you're not that old, my friend. Back in the day, these used to be tornado warnings. And now, you know, and that's a confusing term because you see a big purple polygon like this and you think, wait a minute, there's tornadoes? No, it's because of the wind. So extreme wind warnings are in effect for much of the Lake Charles, Cameron area. This is going to go until about 3 o'clock, and we'll wait and see whether or not they continue to expand that, because again, it's going to take time for Laura to weaken. This may not be a tropical storm until later on this evening. So areas in its path, the northern parts of Louisiana, we're talking Alexandria, Shreveport, still dealing with a hurricane. It may not be until it gets into Arkansas later on tonight when it becomes downgraded to a tropical storm. But also, flash flood warnings are now in effect. I'm monitoring the water levels around the Sabine Pass and also in Calcasieu County, watching those river levels. And right now, everyone is good, but the water is expected to rise in these areas. And so we'll have to wait and see what happens downstream. As you can imagine, those storm surge, the levels, the inundation of water that is being driven by these strong winds. And right now, those winds, they're at 140 miles per hour sustained, but the winds gusting with some of these rain bands, we're talking gusts up to 160, 170 miles per hour. So there is a tornado warning with this outside feeder band, and these bands are going to continue to move over the same area. And as we know and as we learned from Harvey, although it stalled out over our area, these feeder bands can bring a lot of rain, prolific rainmakers, and we're talking anywhere between 6, 12, maybe even 18 inches of rain in some of those eastern spots of Louisiana. Meanwhile, closer to home, if you're just waking up with us, 2 o'clock in the morning, some of you emergency workers, our essential workers that have to get out and about, it is quiet. We have got dry sinking air. We talk about the clean side and a dirty side of the system. We are definitely on the clean side of the system, and that'll stay for much of the morning. We do have some rain chances built in because the leftover moisture, as Laura pulls away, will start to tug in a little bit more of that Gulf moisture as we get into the afternoon, so we'll start to reintroduce some wet weather. And even into Friday, seeing some of her remnants across southeast Texas. But I want to show you the most western fringe of this system, and certainly not the strongest part, but this part of the storm is still bringing in some very strong winds, some gusty winds. We're talking winds between 30 to 50 miles per hour. By no means is it anything compared to what our friends around the Lake Charles are dealing with this morning, but still, for those of you that have to get out and about, and hopefully you're not out and about in the Beaumont area because you were, supposed to evacuate, but we've got some heavy rain bands coming across your area. Port Arthur, right now, most of that moisture is staying away from the High Island area, but any travels along 347, 87, and along I-10. Orange getting pounded right now, and it's been fairly consistent. Already seeing rain totals stacking up in the city of Orange there, so we'll have to monitor that, and that's just along the northwestern fringes of that eye wall. Now, still a Category 4, made landfall with 150 miles per hour, but it was only 5 miles per hour shy from being a Category 5 storm. And if you look at historical, there's not very many Category 5 storms that have hit the U.S. Now, the tropical storm warnings and a lot of our hurricane warnings have been lifted as of the latest advisory. So we are going to see some rapid improvements. We're looking at tropical storm warnings still in effect, Liberty County up toward Polk and San Jacinto County, so right around the Piney Woods area. And a lot of this is because as this system continues to lift, the winds around this system could still do some damage. Still some strong wind gusts, winds gusting up to 60, 70 miles per hour in those tropical storm warning spots. Still dealing with some storm surge issues here closer to the coastline. And then, of course, we have hurricane warnings still along the border from the Sabine Pass eastward. But we are anticipating that this system should weaken. Still a Category 2 storm as it moves across the Jasper area around 7 o'clock. Now, as the sun rises, for us here, we are going to see much improvement to our weather pattern. And here you can see, as we get into the evening, this is going to be racing out toward the Tennessee River Valley and then eventually just rain itself out as it makes its way toward the northeastern seaboard. Look at the water vapor imagery. I talk about the quiet part of the storm. All this orange here, that is dry, sinking air that is going to keep us from any sort of rain as far as the morning is concerned. But some of this moisture is going to get tugged in our direction. All of the moisture really confined to the center of Laura, and you can see the eye clearly on our water vapor imagery as it continues to drift northward and then makes that little bend toward Shreveport later on today. Here's a look at future track. Notice the southern fringes of these rain bands that are going to whip around, impacting areas like New Orleans later on this morning into the afternoon, and then it's going to continue to race up as a Category 2 storm, as I just showed you with our latest cone and from the National Hurricane Center. But then here comes the rain. We get kind of these outer fringes, this northwest wind, and that is going to tug at some of that moisture from Laura. So although we start off quiet this morning, as we head into the afternoon, we've got some widely scattered showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder that will combine with the sea breeze, initiate some of those thunderstorms, and then things should die down by the evening. Getting into Friday, if you're planning the rest of the week and into the weekend, we'll see some rain chances here, Beaumont into Lake Charles. Still some of those outer rain bands that may impact the area. Again, this is a very large storm. Before it made landfall, we were talking about tropical storm force winds out from the center at about 175 miles. And then you're also looking at those hurricane force winds that were about 55 miles. So it's going to take some time for eventually this system, the remnants, all the moisture from the system, to really exit the area. So as we get into Friday afternoon, those rain chances at about 70%. So expect Friday to actually be wetter than what we're going to experience today. And as I mentioned, we should stay mostly dry for that evening commute if you guys are out and about. And then as we get into the afternoon, you may want to keep that umbrella handy as those chances for rain begin to increase. We're looking at temperature readings in the mid-90s, guys.
All right, Alita, thanks a lot. And we heard about Orange County as well there. Alita mentioned that in part of her forecast. We've had Jessica Willey there stationed for a few hours now at this point. At times we've seen her endure some pretty tough winds. Let's check back in with Jessica Willey. Now, how are things going at this point, Jessica?
Yeah, Eric, sorry, we're still getting situated because the wind is gusting even harder and it's whipping around, so we are getting a lot more wet. And about an hour ago when I last saw you, I was able to walk out there. You know what, now I don't think I'm going to, because it's just, I think I could go flying if I stepped out there. I mean, these wind gusts, I don't know, I'd guess 100 miles an hour. They're pretty strong. And the power held on for as long as it could on this side of the road, but power is out now. You can see at that Sonic and at this motel where we are. And across the street, Wes, I don't know if you can show them the awning. That awning is now a casualty at that gas station. Oh. That's one of those wind gusts I just talked about. So that one's gone. But look, those 18-wheelers over there, they're holding on, sitting there. The one in the middle is probably in the best position, right? Protected by those other two. All of these businesses are closed. Somehow that power is on over there. And it's been whipping like this for about an hour, but it is increasing as Laura keeps on moving. Those mandatory evacuations and the curfew really has helped. We really haven't seen anybody on the roads, thank goodness, because this is very dangerous right now. Eric?
All right, yeah, it looks like you're definitely seeing some debris there. And we also checked in with Lita Loreska. She said yes, from the computer models she's able to pull up in data, that you are seeing some wind gusts, definitely around 100 miles per hour there in Orange, Texas. So we can understand the dangerous situation it is to be out on the roads right now. And there looks like there's some vehicles still on the road, Jessica. It seemed like somebody was pulling into the lobby area right there behind you. So I guess some people are still out and about at this point.
Yeah, so this person right here in this truck is a weather chaser. And he's sitting there trying to measure the wind. Wind and everything else. So that's what he's doing, and but he's pretty much the only person we've seen driving around, and he's doing it either for fun or for his business. But that's why he's out here. And look, then the power just went out as we're talking to you.
Yeah, right on cue.
And right.
Yeah, we thought they were on generators.
Yeah, it's getting pretty serious.
Yeah, it sure is. It has turned completely dark there. Besides the taillights of those 18-wheelers off in the distance. Jessica Willey there live in Orange County, Orange, Texas, I should say, again, where we just heard that they are definitely seeing wind gusts of 100 miles per hour. We saw a lot of damage there from just across the street, and now we've seen it can go completely dark. Looks like several blocks, Gina, have lost power, including possibly where the hotel is that Jess is kind of seeking refuge on that sturdy wall.
Yeah, and you know, with Ted's shot, we saw intermittent power going off and on, but here it's just out cold and it hasn't come back. So that storm tracker may have gotten a little bit more than he or she was hoping for on this excursion. We're going to check back in with you later on, Jessica, but right now we want to move to Rose City, which is just east of Beaumont. Courtney Fisher has been driving around in the Beaumont area throughout the evening, and Courtney, you know, Jessica showing us the scene there. It looks like it's escalating, but it looks relatively quiet there behind you.
Yeah, we saw some of those incredible wind gusts, Gina, about 20 minutes ago when I was just checking radar. We're in a little bit of a lull, and like we've seen with this storm, things are gonna pick back up, and that's expected to pick back up in Rose City around 3 a.m. So it is much more quiet than it has been. We basically started in Beaumont, driving around, checking out all those boarded up businesses, stores, and we were gonna try and get towards Jessica. Right behind me is I-10, and we actually have seen some people, semis and pickup trucks still driving in this. We were gonna try and get towards Jessica, and then, you know, listening to her, it's just not safe. And that's when we really started to feel the wind. We physically just had to pull over at this gas station. Thankfully, it's also a bus station, and the building is pretty sturdy cement. And so we've been actually kind of taking cover on this side because trash cans and signs and all of that stuff is flying. And we're in the middle of pitch dark. we can barely see I-10, and so we don't have those lights from businesses to rely on, and we just, are feeling this wind. So you see it starting to pick up. I mean, that's the name of the game, right? It has these lulls and then huge bursts of wind and gusts. So again, it looks like, according to radar, it's about 3 a.m. where we are, where things will start to pick back up. But so far, we've had a little bit of a break, and so that is well received out here. We'll send it back to you.
I'm sure that you're enjoying the bit of the break, and I'm glad that you're getting it, because I know it's been a tough night, especially when you're driving around trying to navigate through these conditions. I know that we have a Jefferson County judge on the phone with us right now. Jeff Brenning, we appreciate you being with us this very early morning at 2:20. How are things looking in your community at this hour, from what your crews can tell you there out in the community?
Well, when I signed the evacuation order on Monday, I told my emergency management crew that it's going to be a 2020 conundrum. That was if it goes 20 miles to the west, we're in big trouble. If it goes 20 miles to the east, we might be okay. It did go 20 miles to the east into Louisiana, and so we've experienced 55 to 89 mile an hour winds. The 89 mile an hour winds being in the extreme southern portions of the county in Sabine Pass, and mostly in Beaumont in the 55 range. So I'm absolutely thrilled by what we've seen. I know we're still going to have some damage. We've seen some power outages. The power went out here at the courthouse, but we have generator power. So, I couldn't be happier for our community or sadder for the people of Lake Charles.
Yes, Judge Brannick, from what we've seen tonight, I know that you and your team have been monitoring our radar as well, but there was a lot of optimism here a good 2 hours ago when you guys were, Beaumont anyway, was out of the cone and also dropped from the extreme wind warning as well, which is a good sign. I know we've seen some live reports here within the last 20 minutes, one from Beaumont and one from Orange County, where basically power was out for several blocks that the reporter could see. They were reporting it in basically just pitch black. So can you elaborate a little bit more on how bad the power outages are in different parts of Jefferson County there, of course, which for our viewers, if they might not know, definitely house, Beaumont, Jefferson, Port Arthur, and Orange County as well.
Well, I know that Orange County's experienced a lot of power outages. In Port Arthur, I think more than half of their population has lost power. That's a town of about 58,000. The county seat is in Beaumont, where my courthouse is located. Of course, the courthouse has lost power, but I don't have the reports from our electrical utility provider yet of how many people were without power here.
Debris-wise, we've seen some damage. I know you kind of alluded to that already, but any reports if it's kind of just in minor parts of the county, or is it a little more widespread in certain parts that maybe even trend a little more eastern towards the more towards where Laura made landfall?
Well, I think we're going to have some debris problem, particularly in the southern part of the county, but when the winds get to tropical storm force, we make all of our first responders come in, and so we won't be able to do assessments until they drop back down below tropical storm force, and then we'll send our road and bridge crews out to look at roadways, see how they've been impacted, whether or not there's trees across them, and where we need to send the chainsaw crews.
Mm-hmm. Well, Judge Brannick, we certainly appreciate you being with us this evening, or I should say this morning, and glad to see it's not any worse there for you folks. But like you, we extend our concern to the folks east of you in Louisiana. We wish you the best tomorrow morning when you have daylight to actually survey the damage.
Thanks so very much. Y'all have a great morning. Bye-bye.
All right, Judge Brannick there again, giving us a little bit of details as to what he's seen in his county. Again, if you're not too familiar with it, it definitely houses Beaumont, Port Arthur, and Orange City as well, some of the bigger cities there in that county. And again, like we were talking to him, Gina, we've seen some reports from, Jessica, Courtney Fisher, It was pitch black where they were. They'd definitely seen some power outage for several blocks.
Yeah,
in,
and those
in
have just
Beaumont.
happened. Yeah. We're going to sign off here on television, and we are going to be continuing our coverage online at abc13.com or on any of our streaming resources. We'll be right back.
I also want to take you now to Port Arthur. We've got Jeff Ealing there in the Rose Hill Park area. Let's go live to him now. Jeff, the last time we talked to you, you were having problems staying on top of your feet. And it looks like things calmed down just a bit, but it looks like they've still got some pretty good wind gusts there.
Yeah, wind's still going pretty good, Eric, but nowhere near what we saw, what was about a half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. Yeah, you're right. It was almost too hard to stand up, and the wind, the rain is pelting our faces. It's stinging pretty good. We're not really getting a whole lot of rain right now. It's almost dry out here right now. You gotta take a look around. The wind's still picking up, occasionally, but nowhere near what it was 15, 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago. And you can see that was where the area where the tree fell down. We've been monitoring that because there's another branch that's cracked, and it is going to fall at some point. So we tried to move away from that area. You can see in the wind what it looks like with it whipping through these trees as it comes down this large avenue here. Again, we did check the seawall. No problem with storm surge or anything like that. Port Arthur's looking pretty darn good right now. We took a look at some of the satellite imagery of what the storm is doing. We're going to get some more from Hurricane Laura, what she has to offer. But I think that this city has passed through the worst of it. We did hear the county judge a little while ago talking about power outages. The electricity is going here. However, large sections of town do not have power. All right, so as you come down, I think it's 25, we get into Port Arthur, to the left and the right, the new sections of town are. Both sides of them without power. Still has electricity. One of the few places that has electricity for the most part. It's dark mostly around Port Arthur, but right now we got one of these lulls, and it's almost like there's nothing going on. No, very, very little rain, and the wind has died down, but we know there's still storm out there. As I say that, here comes another.
Jeff, what kind of mic are you using? Can you hold the mic in your hand? Because we can barely hear you. It's tucked up under there, huh? Well, it's just awfully windy. I just think it is what it is. Yeah, because that's not much better. Wow. No, not your fault. Just as, comes with the territory. Okay. Yes, we're going to go ahead and cut away. As the young folks say, it is what it is, because the mic just wasn't working.
That's
because the wind
right.
was so strong. We want to go now to Courtney Fisher, who last time we saw her was in a place where there wasn't so much wind in Rose City. That's just east of Beaumont. And Courtney, how are things faring for you there now?
Yeah, Gina, this kind of concrete structure, this bus station, gas station, has been a godsend because it's allowed us to kind of take cover and duck away from what we've seen has been flashing and signs and garbage cans just fly past us. What we didn't know is that above us right now is a motel, and there are at least 10 people up there. I just spoke with a few of them. They are from homes in the surrounding area. So we're talking Orange and Beaumont, and these are some of the people who decided so last minute to get out. They boarded up their homes. They said, there were long conversations. Do we go? Do we stay? What do we do? And last minute, they decided to board up. But by then, for some of these people, it was too far. It was too late to get on those evacuation buses. So motels like this is what filled up. They're nervous up there, guys. Some of our producers are getting some of the interviews ready so you can hear from some of them. But we're hearing the roof up there rattle a little bit. So obviously they say they're safe right now. They're clinging to each other and kind of hunkering down. We had no idea there were people staying, like I said, in this motel above us. So as soon as we get some of those interviews turned around, we will let you know. But you can see kind of some of the gusts picking up. And we are just north of where Jeff is right now in Port Arthur. Rose City is about 5 miles east of Beaumont. You can see it and hear it, I'm sure. We were basically on I-10 and trying to get to Jessica, and it just wasn't safe for us to get all the way to Orange. Up there, that's I-10. Earlier, it was lit up a little bit by a blue sky, which we could assume are transformers. blowing. But you can see some of the lights of cars and trucks braving it and basically driving right into where Jessica is. And you saw that wind, Gina and Eric. I mean, that's scary. We had to pull over and we had to get to a safe space. So that's what we're doing. Hopefully we're gonna turn around these interviews and you can hear from some of these people who are riding out right above me in several motel rooms. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Courtney, thanks a lot. And you kind of feel for what Courtney was getting to there. A lot of people just, it was so hard to make a decision because this track really was uncertain until very much the last day, possibly even later than the last day. And so some people couldn't make a decision, which I completely understand. So people living in that community went ahead and sought higher ground, that second-story motel that she's at as well. Good choice either way. You can't fault them for being cautious.
No, and even in our community, I know this morning with my family, we were still going ahead and making sure we had batteries and stuff because the projection was that the storm was going to turn to the north, which it did end up doing, but we were saying, okay, we won't really know until 6 p.m. So even on our conference calls we have via Zoom during the day, you know, there was still this peppering of questions for our meteorologists. Are you sure that's going to happen? Are you sure that's going to happen? And with weather and with storms like this, you can't be too careful because you don't really know 2 days out, and that's just unfortunate. People want it to be an exact science, but it's not. So this time we were lucky, but some other communities really getting a catastrophic event happening and a kind of a unprecedented event.